Today we're going to be restoring a vintage motorcycle lamp. That's what it's going to look like when it's done. But let's go back to how it starts off. Now this thing is very old. It doesn't look like it's been redone before. Somebody's painted it in the past to try and improve the looks of it, because obviously the original plating is not looking quite so good. This was originally plated in nickel, not in chrome, because at that point they weren't using chrome. The customer told me when he brought it in that it was 1927. And what's even more interesting with this lamp, it's not electric, it's an old acetylene lamp. First thing that we do always is we photograph it and we book it in. That photograph gets printed out and gets put with the job, ready to go around the workshop. Now unfortunately I've had to skip paint stripping and actually this lamp going into the stripper because the camera failed to record. So we lost that bit of footage, but we managed to get everything else. So all that's happened to it so far is it's had the paint stripped off it with paint stripper, and then it was put in this tank where we actually plate the plating off. It's a tank with sulfuric acid and some other bits in it. And we basically reverse the process, so the workpiece becomes the anode instead of the cathode. That way we take the plating off of it. So after it's been stripped, make sure that we check it off. Got all the bits we should have. You can see some dents in it there. When it comes to restoring old chrome work, every part of it is labour intensive. Just takes a long time. Now, the first job on this particular one is we're going to clean it up. We're not actually trying too hard to polish it at this stage. The reason being, it's got numerous dents in it, and we don't want to take too much metal off it before it's repaired. Because the reason for that is you need enough metal there to work. So this is a mop that's dressed up, what we call a stitch mop, because it's stitched from the sides to keep it together, and it's dressed up with some greaseless abrasive known as sateen. So just going all over it. Speeding it up a bit. So that one's been gone over. You can see that it's got some dents in it. We'll mark them up shortly. It is important to make sure you go over all of the bits, even if they're the awkward bits, because anything we don't go over could have dents in it and you just can't see them. This can be a mistake where customers have actually taken their own dents out because they've got the skills to do it, but because they do it before something's been stripped and cleaned up, then quite often they've just missed areas, missed dents, and then we still have to get repairs undertaken. now doing all the fiddly bits. Now if you like the videos that we do, you can subscribe to our YouTube channel, and that way, especially if you press the little notification bell, we can inform you when there's new videos coming up. Like I was saying earlier, this is an acetylene lamp where the light was produced by acetylene gas. You had to carry a bottle of acetylene with you on your motorbike and light it so you could see where you were going at night. Apparently they gave out a really good light, but carrying a bottle of gas on my motorbike isn't something I'd really be that keen in doing. Just going around it and finding all the little repairs that need addressing. Just trying to get into that little recessed bit where that bead is. There we go, need to repair on that bead. Onto the rim. Now at this stage, like I said, this is really just a clean-up. We're not really attempting to polish it too much. The one thing you don't see in the video is these tools, when they're dressed up with sateen, they don't actually last very long, so you have to keep stopping, dressing them up, then you have to go on to another tool while you wait for that one to dry, so it all adds to the work. You can literally wipe the abrasive off these in seconds. The other thing to bear in mind is these machines are quite dangerous if you don't know how to operate them. And one of the most dangerous things that you can actually polish is something that's round like a headlamp rim, because if you get it to snatch on a tool, it can drag your fingers in. Which is why, if you notice, it's being held, fingers aren't being wrapped around and put inside the headlamp. That way, if it snatches, it will snatch out of your hand and won't take your hand with it. More dents to be marked out. The top peak of that is quite wavy all the way through. It's difficult to see on the camera, but it's not really very round. It's going to take quite a bit of repair. And here we go to our repairman. This is the only part that is actually done out of house when it gets to complicated repairs like this. Always notice that he never hits the hammer straight on. It's always at a slight angle, sort of wiping it across the surface. He tells me what he's doing is moving the metal in directions that he wants it to move. It's almost as if the metal's a very thick fluid. I can't really explain this in detail due to my lack of knowledge, but it is a work of art to see him working on these things. There's my dog barking in the background. As you can see, this did take quite a long time to repair. There's well over an hour's work here that's been condensed by speeding it up as much as possible. Now what's happening here, there are a few little bits and pieces that need repair, splits and things, but in an ideal world, if you've got a split in brass, you would silver solder it up. But this is so old and thin now that if we were to try and silver solder it, it would actually warp the metal that's there and create more of a problem. So we can actually use lead. It's not ideal, but it's the best we can do.
That bit just went straight down between the fingers.
That's a little dent that's on top of that peak, but you can't get to it with a hammer to take it out because it's a double skin. So if we can't knock it out, we've got to fill it.
That bit there, yeah. It's going to be a bugger, that is, ain't it?
There's a crack running along that bead. That's what they're going to fill now.
On the top and then just leave it. Just get the best you can.
So he's just checking it all out now to make sure that the repairs are okay. There we go, much better now. Now this is where we're actually going to start polishing it properly now. Once something's been repaired, 99% of the time you've got to do more polishing work to it. Because where he's had to file it, it leaves it rougher than we would like, but unfortunately there's not a lot you can do about it. You can only do the metalwork repairs using metalwork repair tools. So what we're doing now, we're getting all the file marks out. Now this lamp now is actually got to a point where it's a little bit too thin to polish and get a mirror finish that we need in order to plate it straight up with a nickel. Also, because it's got some lead repairs in it, it means we're going to have to copper it anyway, because you will see the repairs otherwise. So we're going to heavy copper plate this, and what it does is copper goes on, and it goes on thicker, and it's a nice soft material to work with. It goes on thicker than most other types of plating, and that way we've got some more metal to work with. If you think of it doing in plating, what a high build primer does in paint, then you're not that far away, you're about right. Now, here we go, being wired up. This is so we can put a layer of copper on it to put some metal back on, give us something to work with. Just going to tie a weight to it. Let's find a weight. The reason for this is we have to keep it in one place in the tank. If it moves around in the tank, then they're going to have problems. So this is a soapy cleaner, just a strong detergent. Although this should be clean, it's not worth taking the chance on any parts and not making sure they're 100% clean before you start. A big part of plating is about cleanliness. It's got to be perfectly clean. Any grease, dirt or whatever is going to affect the finish in various different ways. Now what's happening here is we put it in a solution and we're passing electrical current through it. Now what this is for is it's to remove any oxidisation, so the metal is what's termed as active. It has to be in an active state so that it will accept the plating and it will bond correctly. If it's not active, then it's passive, and if it's passive it will plate, but it won't adhere properly and you'll have problems with things peeling off. So just going through a rinse system. This is water. Start off with the dirty water, going through to the cleaner water. And that's a dilute acid, just to wash any soaps off, make sure any soap is off the surface of it. If those are left on, it can, or it will stain. There's no can about it, it will definitely stain the item. Now first of all we're going into a cyanide based copper solution. Because that's got some metal steel pins in it, you can actually acid copper, which is the copper that builds up to a thickness, you can actually plate that directly onto brass, but there's a few steel rivets and stuff holding it together. So because of that we need to put it through the cyanide copper first, because we don't want the plating peeling off those items. So straight into the acid copper. There it is, bubbling away. It's been in there for an hour or so. There we go. Now we've got enough metal on it, back on it, we can do some more polishing work and get it ready for plating. So here we go, we're using very fine abrasives now. Because that peak is so thin, we're only going to polish it to a mirror finish on the outside, because the underside you won't see, and it will still be shiny, it just won't be quite as perfect. So now we're using mops and polishing compounds. Sorting out any fiddly bits. You can really see the shine starting to build on these parts now, so basically at the stage where it's a mirror finish. Now what we're doing now is wiping it over with a cloth with some lime on it, although it's not actually real lime, it's a lime substitute now, because that wipes off any marks. Because while it's still warm, because from the heat from being rubbed against the mop, it's much easier to wipe any marks and tiny bits of grease off, because the polishing compounds do have grease in them. So let's give it a wipe now, and that makes the plater's job far easier, because he's not trying to get what we call compo marks off. Polishing composition is shortened to compo, and that's the trade term for it. So we don't want any pieces of compo left on it, so a good wipe, a good inspect, ready for plating. That's wired up very much the same as it was before. Goes through the exact same cleaning process, being wiped over. Now electrically cleaned. It's going to go through the same rinse process again, and then it's going to go into the nickel tank. Now this isn't the same nickel that you would have under chrome. This is actually a different type of nickel. It's what's known as dull nickel, or it's sometimes called soft nickel, or the actual trade term for it is what's known as a Watts nickel. Now this nickel tank here has absolutely no brightness in it at all. If you notice, them items coming out look a grey colour. Now when it comes out, it is a grey colour. Now this is the exact correct finish for the year, because it wasn't until after 1930, as a result of chrome plating on top of nickel, that they devised brightener systems. Now this dull nickel has advantages over bright nickel in the fact that it's very soft and ductile, like copper. So in theory we could take a hammer to these and smash them up, and the plating would deform but it wouldn't chip. So it's a really good, it's non-porous, very weather resistant. It is a really good form of plating. However, the big disadvantage is when you plate it, it comes out this grey colour. Those marks that are on it are just watermarks from where I've just blown it off with the airline. If this was going to be a dull nickel piece, then it wouldn't have been dried off that way. But it's going to be polished. So what we've got to do now is polish it again. Now this is the big disadvantage with this finish, is that if you want it to look bright and pretty, you've actually got to do all the polishing etc. twice. So We've got to get into all the nooks and crannies again with a mop, and the trick is we've got to polish it up so it's nice and bright, but we're not got to polish through the plating that we've just put on it. If we polish through to the copper underneath, then we've got to plate it again. So we have to attack it with various different mops of shapes, sizes, different hardness. That's what's known as a swan's down. It hasn't got any stitches in the side, so it's an open mop and very soft. Here's a little tiny mop for getting into some of the details inside there. Now this is going into some of the special, that hard to get to areas, and this is a special type of mop called a basil. It's made of leather. Traditionally it's made of walrus hide. Whether they are now, I very much doubt. But basils are great for going into recesses and not leaving a load of compo in there while you're doing it. There's so many facets to these, to this lamp, that you've just got to attack it with loads of different tools. Patience, experience, and skill are the keys. And there we are, the finished article. See the dents are out of it. Some mirror finish again. These old lamps really are a thing of beauty. They're like works of art. You can see why they don't make them like that anymore. Now, if you would like to see more of our videos, please hit the subscription button and the bell.